So guys, remember to like and subscribe. Hi, and welcome to the Nerdy Bazaar. Today, we're going to talk about something interesting. As you can probably see behind me, I've got a lot of Marvel Legends. But not all Marvel Legends were made by the people who make them now. Hasbro. They used to be made by a company called Toybiz. And let's just say they didn't have the greatest track record when it came to making good figures. But they tried, and that was important. So, I thought today we would have a look at the difference between some of old Toybiz figures and some new Hasbro figures of the same character in the same costume. Just to compare and contrast, because it'd be funny. First up is the Sentry. The Sentry is a Marvel's rip-off of Superman, but still quite an interesting character because he's schizophrenic and it's that kind of power and an unstable vessel. It's quite interesting. When I first started collecting Marvel Legends, like properly collecting them, as it grew into this, he was one of the first characters I got because it was like, oh cool, I'm reading New Avengers, I can read this now, I've got a character I'm reading, I thought it's quite cool. Now, the problem was, in his first few appearances, he had really short hair, but like every other appearance after that, he had really long hair. Not to mention, this kind of looks like a Boy Scout, so the Hasbro one actually improved it quite a bit and made him much more menacing. Next up, and won't be the last time you'll appear on this list, is Wolverine. This is Astonishing X-Men Wolverine, unmasked version. I have both of them. This one I was so excited to get a hold of because it was like, again, it was a comic book I was reading at the time, and I was like, yes, I'm getting a figure of a comic book character. Unfortunately, the Toybiz construction isn't the greatest. It breaks a lot of the sculpting, and it's not the greatest figure, to be honest. But the new version looks way more interesting to me and entertaining. And not to mention, the claws look better. Important thing for a Wolverine figure. Next up is Spider-Woman. Again, I was reading New Avengers at the time when I started collecting. This is just not a good sculpt for a character. I had to bring this one up just to like bring it up to show how bad it is. Like, where are we? The legs, the proportions are all terrible. Not to mention they've got webbing under the arm stops the character from like moving properly. It's just horrid. So when Hasbro announced that they were doing a new one, I snapped that up. Making his second appearance on this list is Age of Apocalypse, Weapon X, or Wolverine. This one is not a bad figure per se, but it's part of the Giant Man wave, and I remember trying to find the last piece of the Giant Man was a real pain to get the variant of this figure. But the remake from Hasbro is just so much better. The face sculpt's better, and it's better. Next up is the Falcon. This figure is one of my would top my list of one of the worst Marvel Legends from the Toybiz era. Not because it's just terrible. Look at the proportions. The wings don't look. He just doesn't look like he's capable of fighting crime. And for the longest time, I didn't like the character of the Falcon because of this figure. It's just terrible. I have to admit, Hasbro's upgraded one, based on the Vulture body, is so much better. Those wings look cooler, and it looks better in flight. Also, what kind of power is flight when you don't have anything else to back it up? Making his third appearance on this list is Classics Wolverine. Now this figure isn't terrible per se, it's just the new one's better. The claws are all bent because they use horrible malleable materials. The posability is not the greatest, but as we've recently had a new version, I thought I'd put him on this list. The new one's better. Next is Daredevil. This figure is atrocious in proportion wise. The sculpting isn't too bad, but the arms, the way they stick out so much, it's horrible. But the inclusion of a belly club with a little string, that's kind of cool. But the new version has a brighter colour, better sculpt, and just looks better on a shelf with Spider-Man and the rest. Next is Toybiz Scarlet Witch. This figure just looks terrible. The head sculpt alone is just... She looks really mousy and frumpy, and it's not supposed to be what the Scarlet Witch looks like. Not to mention posability. Toybiz really struggled when it came to making female figures, I think. It was just... They were either too articulated to the point that they looked horrible, or it's not articulated enough to do anything. But the new version, it's much more entertaining. It's nicer, it's got a better sculpt. The posability is not amazing, but it's still, it's an improvement. The next one has to be the Black Cat. Black Cat is one of my favourite Marvel characters of all time, which just is. But this figure just does not do it justice. It's got, like I mentioned earlier, Toybiz, they made them either not posable or too posable, and this one suffers from being too posable. It's just horrible. It looks clunky, and you can see the pictures. Look how bad that looks. But the new version, where they made a much better sculpt, head sculpt, posability, it looks better. Also, something I noticed when I was taking pictures for this video, at the back of this figure, what the hell is that? they move when you move the legs. The number one worst Toybiz figure for me has to be the Black Widow. This figure is just horrible. Again, it's all the things that are wrong with the Black Cat figure, except it's got the better bum. But it's just, look at the neck. It's horrible. And when I first had this figure, I had a production era one where it had backwards hands, so I think it's really ruined it for me. But compared to the new one, this one's garbage, man. So this is the top 10 worst Toybiz figures. There are some honourable mentions, but I don't have them, like Toybiz Rogue, and there's a couple others. But they're the ones I have in my collection, and I thought I'd share them with you. I've been Aaron, this is Nerdy Bazaar. Please subscribe, like the video, and all that jazz. See if I want to make some more of these videos. I had when I first started to collect. I've got hair up my freaking nose. Ew.